Hello my 420 Spot family. Happy Friday to everyone. Hope you are having a great day. In the news today, Connecticut marijuana legalization bill heads to governor's desk. Great news for Connecticut, it's 420 somewhere, what are you smoking on? Article by Tom Angell and the video by my420spot.com. Connecticut is on the verge of legalizing marijuana after lawmakers sent a cannabis reform bill to the desk of the state's supportive governor on Thursday. The latest action? A Senate vote of 16-11, caps a drama-filled week that at one point saw Governor Ned Lamont, D., issue a threat to veto the legislation he largely supports over a specific provision on equity licensing eligibility. On Wednesday the bill passed the House of Representatives, which had amended the version adopted by the Senate a day earlier to remove the controversial language, necessitating Thursday's final vote on concurrence. If Lamont signs the bill into law as expected, possession of marijuana by adults 21 and older will become legal on July 1. Commercial cannabis sales could begin as soon as next May, but the bill does not specify an exact start date. Senator Gary Winfield, D., who shepherded the measure through the body, noted before the final vote that it came on the 50th anniversary of President Richard Nixon's declaration of the war on drugs, which the senator said damaged communities that now stand to benefit from equity-focused legalization. "We have operated for 50 years with unjust laws that target certain communities," he said. "We have damaged the lives of human beings in the United States of America who are a certain hue, because of politics." In a statement after the vote, Lamont called it fitting for the move to come on the drug war anniversary. The war on cannabis, which was at its core a war on people in black and brown communities, not only caused injustices and increased disparities in our state, it did little to protect public health and safety, he said. "I look forward to signing the bill and moving beyond this terrible period of incarceration and injustice." On Tuesday, senators had adopted an amendment allowing people with past cannabis arrests and convictions, as well as their parents, children and spouses, to qualify for social equity status when applying for marijuana business licenses. Previously the bill limited eligibility only to people who reside in areas that have been disproportionately affected by drug war convictions and arrests. Half of all business licenses under the new system would need to be issued to social equity applicants. While the provision expanding equity eligibility based on past arrests and convictions was intended to help redress harms caused by the war on drugs, Lamont's chief of staff, Paul Mounds Jr., said in a statement that it would open the floodgates for tens of thousands of previously ineligible applicants to enter the adult-use cannabis industry. The rule allows just about anyone with a history of cannabis crimes or a member of their family, regardless of financial means, who was once arrested on simple possession to be considered with the same weight as someone from a neighborhood who has seen many of their friends and loved ones face significant penalties and discrimination due to their past cannabis crimes, the statement said. A second Senate amendment, which reportedly was introduced to address the governor's stated concerns, clarified that anyone whose income is more than 3 times the state's median income, regardless of criminal record or place of residence, could not qualify for social equity status. But on Wednesday morning, Lamont again told reporters that he wouldn't sign the bill in the form passed by the Senate. In response, House lawmakers rejected both Senate-approved amendments, essentially returning the bill to the form in which it was originally introduced on Monday, then made one additional change. After stripping the Senate changes, House lawmakers added back in a Senate-passed provision that bars legislators, statewide elected officials, cannabis regulators and members of the Social Equity Board from participating in the cannabis industry for 2 years after leaving government. That restriction was introduced in response to Republican concerns that legalization would otherwise create opportunities for officials to benefit themselves by entering an industry they previously influenced. Despite the flurry of activity on the latest proposal, much of the nearly 300-page bill resembles a legalization measure that passed the Senate last week, which went on to stall on the House floor during the final hours of the regular session. That measure was pitched by Democratic legislative leaders as a compromise incorporating elements of both Lamont's own legalization proposal, which advanced through 2 legislative committees this year, as well as an equity-focused legalization bill by Representative Robin Porter, D. The current bill, SB 1201, was originally introduced Monday by House Speaker Matt Ritter, D., and Senate President Martin Looney, D. Here are some key details of the current legalization proposal. It would allow adults 21 and older to possess up to 1.5 ounces of cannabis starting on July 1 and establish a retail market. Legislative leaders anticipate sales would launch in May 2022. Regulators with the Department of Consumer Protection, DCP, would be responsible for issuing licenses for growers, retailers, manufacturers and delivery services. Social equity applicants would be entitled to half of those licenses. Equity applicants could also qualify for technical assistance, workforce training, and funding to cover startup costs. A significant amount of tax revenue from cannabis sales would go toward broader community reinvestment targeting areas most affected by the criminal drug war. Home cultivation would be permitted, first for medical marijuana patients and later for adult use consumers. Most criminal convictions for possession of less than 4 ounces of cannabis would be automatically expunged beginning in 2023. Beginning July 1, 2022, individuals could petition to have other cannabis convictions erased, such as for possession of marijuana paraphernalia or the sale of small amounts of cannabis. The smell of cannabis alone would no longer be a legal basis for law enforcement to stop and search individuals, nor would suspected possession of up to 5 ounces of marijuana. Absent federal restrictions, employers would not be able to take adverse actions against workers merely for testing positive for cannabis metabolites. Rental tenants, students at institutions of higher learning, and professionals in licensed occupations would be protected from certain types of discrimination around legal cannabis use. People who test positive for cannabis metabolites, which suggest past use, could not be denied organ transplants or other medical care, educational opportunities, or have action taken against them by the Department of Children and Families without another evidence-based reason for the action. Cannabis-related advertising could not target people under 21, and businesses that allow minors on their premises would be penalized. Products designed to appeal to children would be forbidden. Licensees who sell to minors would be guilty of a Class A misdemeanor, punishable by up to a year in prison and a $2,000 fine. People in charge of households or private properties who allow minors to possess cannabis there could also face a Class A misdemeanor. Adults 18 to 20 years old who are caught with small amounts cannabis would be subject to a $50 civil fine, although subsequent violations could carry a $150 fine and/or mandatory community service. All possession offenses would require individuals to sign a statement acknowledging the health risks of cannabis to young people. Minors under 18 could not be arrested for simple cannabis possession. A first offense would carry a written warning and possible referral to youth services, while a third or subsequent offense, or possession of more than 5 ounces of marijuana, would send the individual to juvenile court. Local governments could prohibit cannabis businesses or ban cannabis delivery within their jurisdictions. Municipalities could also set reasonable limits on the number of licensed businesses, their locations, operating hours, and signage. Municipalities with more than 50,000 residents would need to provide a designated area for public cannabis consumption. Until June 30, 2024, the number of licensed cannabis retailers could not exceed 1 per 25,000 residents. After that, state regulators will set a new maximum. Cannabis products would be capped at 30% THC by weight for cannabis flower and all other products except pre-filled vape cartridges at 60% THC, though those limits could be further adjusted by regulators. Medical marijuana products would be exempt from the potency caps. Retailers would also need to provide access to low THC and high CBD products. The state's general sales tax of 6.35% would apply to cannabis, and an additional excise tax based on THC content would be imposed. The bill also authorizes a 3% municipal tax, which must be used for community reinvestment. Existing medical marijuana dispensaries could become hybrid retailers to also serve adult use consumers. Regulators would begin accepting applications for hybrid permits in September 2021, and applicants would need to submit a conversion plan and pay a $1 million fee. That fee could be cut in half if they create a so-called equity joint venture, which would need to be majority owned by a social equity applicant. Medical marijuana growers could also begin cultivating adult use cannabis in the second half this year, though they would need to pay a fee of up to $3 million. Licensing fees for social equity applicants would be 50% of open licensing fees. Applicants would need to pay a small fee to enter a lottery, then a larger fee if they're granted a license. Social equity licensees would also receive a 50% discount on license fees for the first 3 years of renewals. The state would be allowed to enter into cannabis-related agreements with tribal governments, such as the Mashantucket Pequot Tribe and the Mohegan Tribe of Indians. Congratulations, Connecticut, one more legal state to stick it to Biden. Thank you for watching this video by my 420 Spot. Have a great day.